Last week, I talked about treasures of heaven, so I'm going to start from there again, and I'm going to build from there, and I want to talk about something very specifically, greater spiritual work. So has anyone heard? Wow, claps. Excited? Sure, yeah, you can clap to that. Someone's really excited. I don't know who that was, but maybe they felt, wow, this is a sermon I can finally relate to. Greater spiritual work. So oftentimes we talk about spiritual great works. It's a program that we do, but I'm talking about really greater spiritual activity, greater spiritual life. This is part one. The part two of this, I'll share tomorrow, so most of you don't go tomorrow, will be greater physical life. So it's not just spirit, we also have our physical life that we have to stand with better integrity, stand with stronger character, strong with a greater sense of physical well-being. We have a lot of work to do in that area, but we start always with spirit. We start with spirit. So let me just recap last week so that everyone's on the same page, and I'm going to teach you all a bit of Korean. Is that okay? You're going to learn a bit of Korean. So Mother shared this on January 3rd last year. She said, in other words, all the unpleasant things that were unsatisfactory last year are gone. I shared this last week. I hope that centered on God, Heavenly Parent, you will become united, blessed families, chumbo couples that can newly cherish and embrace people in all situations. And that you ultimately become blessed families that are respected and spoken of with pride as victors in front of heaven and all of humankind. Whew. Good luck. Good luck. This is a standard that true parents have set for us, that we can be the type of people that can embrace all situations, everything. All the difficulties in the world, we can embrace it. We can bring it into our hearts. We can understand it. We can digest it intellectually, emotionally, and volitionally. On an action level, we can do something about it. Aju? Can you be that type of person? Getting there. Got it. Also, the type of person that when other people see you, they say, wow, that's an awesome guy. And that family, when you see that family, you think, wow, that's the family I want to have. I'll share a small testimony, a few of us have been to evening prayer vigil. Some of you have been coming. We at 9 p.m. led by Kengo Kawa, and every single night they're offering prayer. But the truth is that it gets kind of lonely, right, Kengo? It gets a little lonely. But it's not too lonely because you have Kengo and you have his entire family there with him. So every night, even though other members don't come, at least the Kawa family is there. And so a few of us have had this experience, right, Daniel, where we go there and it's us and the Kawas, and we feel like we're at the closing, you know how families sometimes close in prayer together? I feel like I'm at the Kawa prayer closing for the day. But it's a beautiful thing. It makes you want to cry. It's like, wow, that's what it feels like to have a family that's together. And we can't all claim that. I still long for that. Many of you know my picture of Cheonyeoguk. The picture of the kingdom of heaven for me is my family together singing. That's the picture for me. That's what I long to reach. I want to get to that point. But when I feel that, it's like, wow, that's who I want to be. I want to be like Kengo Kawa. I want to be like Kengo. So this is a standard we're trying to reach. What does Mother call that? True Mother calls that chunbo. Chunbo. So we're learning some Korean. It means heaven's treasure. It means heaven's treasure. Heaven's treasure. But what it really means is that to reach that standard, to reach a level of being really the treasure of heaven, the one that stands out in front of all the other billions of people in the world, is that you're a family that is building God's kingdom on earth. You're a family that goes beyond the realm of the family. You're thinking as a harmonious family, we're trying, I know we're all trying, but at least as a couple, or at least I can stand as a representative of my family, wherever you may be at. We long to be the ones who help God, who put God on our back and say, God, you don't need to run anymore. Let me take care of things. We expand the environment on behalf of God so that other people can be embraced by God. That's our goal. That's the standard we're trying to reach, and we're all on the journey to trying to get there. You best believe that Takaya and I are fighting for that in our life. We stumble and fall all the time, but this is the standard we're longing for. We call that chunbo. That's what we want to be. That's what we strive to be like. the people that the world sees and they see that's someone that is proud, and that's someone I want to be like. So she goes on to say, 2016, she says, we as the borrowers of the earth should pay the price and compensate heaven, meaning we've received so much. Therefore, we need to change our daily habits now. When we can do this, we will be able to witness to others easily. So you want to expand the realm of God's embrace so that other people can receive God's love through you, and you can be shining bright light to other people. That's what we mean by witness. You're a witness. You are a demonstration of God somehow. Well, we somehow have to change our daily habits. That's what Mother's suggesting. We have to change our daily habits. Our lifestyle has to change. Has heaven been idle? No. God has been awaiting earnestly and longingly for this day to come. Has he been idle? You are all leaders. So you should all make sure you are good examples to yourselves, in your families, and to your brothers and sisters at the church. Again, this is a tough piece of word to digest. But this is what we are longing to get to. So it starts with your individual self. I want to become a shining bright light person for the world. I want to be someone that God can cherish. Because I have to change the way that I live my life. And that begins with my internal self. And I'm going to share about this point. So that's the point I want to make today, is that we have to have a greater internal life, spiritual life. And when we get to that point, then our physical life changes. And then we become someone that the world witnesses is amazing, special, someone with the vigor of life, and brings joy to those around them. So I want to read a verse from the Bible. This is, as I was studying the Bible a few years ago, this verse really stood out to me and has become very deep for me. And it says in Joel 2:12-14, it says, even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning. Rend your heart and not your garments. What does it mean to rend your heart? Does anyone know? Rend. Does anyone know what it means to rend your heart? Rending means to tear. No, it really means to tear apart. Rip. You know, back in the day, the Bible talks about how like the saints of old would hear God's voice and then they would rip their clothes. You know, why are you ripping your clothes? But it would be with such like that kind of passion. They would rend their garments. They would rend God. Has anyone ever done this? This level of no? Just me? It's always just me. What's going on? I've told you guys too many stories. There's some nights where you're impassioned. And I've never actually torn my shirt. But ripping off vigorously and being half naked and running around and wow, our pastor's crazy. I got it. Rend your hearts is what Joel says. Rend your heart. Well, that's what the Lord says. And not your garments. So don't worry, you don't need to tear your clothes to get closer to God. Don't worry, Lanza. It's all right. But we have to tear our heart. What does that mean? Return to the Lord your God. Tear yourself from the things that we're holding on to. For he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love. And he relents from sending calamity. God doesn't want to hurt us. Who knows? He may turn and relent and even leave a blessing behind. Grain offerings, drink offerings for the Lord your God. Rend your heart. So this is why I chose this verse is, this is a very intense description of what spiritual life should look like, right? Spiritual life is something that has levels. You may be the type of person that sits and quietly prays, but there's levels to the point of where your prayer can go, of where your relationship with God can go. Maybe you've never actually given yourself a shot. To rend your heart. What is rend? It's tearing. It means to actually, you could be very quiet. You can do this very quietly, by the way. You can tear your heart very quietly. So just however you do it, but the depth in which you go into it. My relationship with God requires me to rend my heart. I was sharing last week. There's some, some of my deepest prayers are in the shower. Sometimes you curl up in the shower and you pray. And and it's quiet. If I yell in my apartment, the entire apartment will hear it. It's an old apartment. We can't even walk at night because they get complained downstairs. But I'll sit there in the shower and I feel it. I know the way that my life has been leading. I rend my heart so that I can grow closer to God. It's a matter of depth, and it's quite dramatic. It requires you to stretch, and be willing to go there. And I feel with especially our generation maybe it feels like this is something you do in the old age. But actually, I hope everyone can get to an experience like this, where you really rend your heart to God, where you really tear your heart to grow closer to God. You have to have deep spiritual experiences. You do. And then you got to write them down. You got to write them down so that they're forever. So I'm going to share something with you all that is from our divine principle, of course. But this is, man, when I look at this, folks, this is genius. Because there's some things that are undeniable in this world, but they're then very hard to explain. One of those undeniable things for me is that we have a spiritual body. We have a spiritual life. It's so hard to deny the existence of the spiritual of things. And it's so painful when people do deny it. I've witnessed and experienced someone who at the end of their life, who was very elderly, didn't believe in the spiritual world. It was so painful to watch as this elderly man who didn't believe in the spiritual world regretted the idea of passing away, even though he had a great life, tremendous life, one of valor, and many medals to show for it. But at the end, he regretted where he was. Gosh, it's like, why at the end of such a great life do you regret? It's because he didn't believe that there was a spiritual world. So he thought, well, if I die, it's nothing. I decay into nothingness. And I could feel like this heart-wrenching pain at the end of this man's life. And I could, it's not something I would wish on anyone. At the end of your life, I hope you know that there is a spiritual life. And there's a greater thing to go to. And you deserve it. You deserve that eternal life. It's not the decaying into nothingness. That's not the conclusion. But then to explain all that is really difficult. So principle does it in this way. It describes that you have a physical life. And your physical life is composed of your physical mind, which directs the physical body to maintain the function for its survival, its protection, and its reproduction. It corresponds to the instinct of an animal. It's a little more than the instinct of an animal, but it corresponds to it. It's something that is innate within us. It's our physical mind. Then we have our physical body. So we have the intangible and we have the tangible of our physical realm of life. And our physical body is sustained very simply by air, sunlight, food, and water. And we maintain ourselves by our physical mind's directive. Does that make sense? This is physical. Then there's the spiritual life that we have. And the spiritual life is a reflection of the same. God creates in a certain image, and that image is reflected in all areas of life. Therefore, we have to have duality. Therefore, spirit mind is at the center of our spiritual life, and you have your spirit body. Whoa, is this too much? This is okay. This is receivable, right? Justin, it's all right? Yeah, we're okay. Yeah. So your spirit body is fed through God's love and truth. So as you receive more of God's love, you naturally always are receiving God's love. We just don't recognize it. And you're living in God's truth. You just don't realize it. And when you start to recognize it and you start to intentionally receive more of God's love and truth, your spiritual body grows, cultivates itself. It develops. But the center of it is your spirit mind. Now the question is, where does God dwell? If you were to ask yourself, where is God? Lon, where is God? Where is God? Up there? Yeah, he's up there. He's also down there. He's over there. He's over here. It's hard to identify. God is beyond time and space. Actually, to point in a direction would deny the existence of God, because then you've bound God to time and space. Isn't that kind of wild? The entire idea is that God is not bound by time, space, and matter. Therefore, God can't be there or over there or over there. God is beyond that. God is in a completely different dimension of life, the spiritual realm of life, which is not bound by a direction. There's power in pointing, though. There's power, praise him. And you lift it up. You're not praising him down there, right? You lift it up, you lift it up. So where does God dwell? God dwells within our spirit mind. So at the center of our spirit body, we have a mind. And that mind is the center of our spirit self, and it's God's dwelling place. So when I talk to Lansan, I'm actually talking to God. And that is very scary and also very beautiful. God is dwelling within each and every one of his children. And it's the spirit mind that seeks beauty, truth, and goodness. But this is where the key comes in. Because when we rend our heart, what are we rending? What are we doing, really? When we say, rend your heart, grow closer to God, long for God, what are you actually doing? It's not a physical body matter. You may physically do something, but it's an internal matter that deals with your spirit mind. You are resonating with God. You are choosing in your spirit mind to somehow become one with God. That is what it's implying. So how do we elevate that? How do we grow our spirit mind? How do we arrive at a higher level of spirituality? I've witnessed this. I've witnessed experiences of this, and personally. We brought 40 clergy last year to Korea, and we brought them to this prayer hall. And these prayer halls are specifically designed to be a place for you to rend your heart closer to God. This place is powerful. It's in Korea. And we brought these clergy, these Christian pastors who are not used to this type of experience. Were you there, Mikuni, at this time? Yeah. This was challenging. But we asked them to pray. I was floored by the testimonies from these pastors. Half of them barely even know who Father and Mother Moon are, don't understand this prayer hall at all, but just Christian pastors. And they lift their hands and they prayed. And I witnessed as these pastors walked out with crying eyes as they experienced God in a way that they hadn't in a very long time or had it all, and how God came down and showed them different things. It was so powerful to witness this. So many of them came out. There was this one man, his name's Bishop Abram Dixon. He was he's close to Bishop Noel Jones, and he's been a close friend, but he wasn't on board. Like he wasn't there yet. He understood everything, but he wasn't internally clear with everything. He walked out of this prayer hall, and then later on, we were driving up to Mother's house up on the hill. And he looked at me and he's like, these people I know now are the people of God. In the very bishop prophet way, the people of God. He had a complete realization of who they were. Incredible. Like we could spend years with him teaching and sitting down, but it was just one experience of some radical experience with God, and changed through intense prayer. And so this is Mother's words on this matter. In regards to these prayer halls, which we call Chonshim-won, she says, national restoration. Heavenly Parents' homeland should be restored first. Is that right or not? We must teach about the fundamental nature of the Creator, the Heavenly Parent, and about the mission of the true parents. For this reason, we can say that the Chonshim-won providence, meaning these prayer halls and us rending our heart closer to God, is at the root of an unwavering faith. Each person must personally experience this. Do you understand? Yes. Will you do this? Yes. Thanks. Thanks, True Mother. It's the root of our faith. How deeply we go into our life of faith and our relationship with God is the center of everything. It's the center of everything. And so True Father said this in 1995. If we follow the desires of the body, we'll be pulled down to the point where the sphere of our conscience dwindles to zero. Our consciousness, or our spiritual life. However, if we control the desires of the body, we can grow in our vertical faith. We have not yet grown spiritually to reach the standard of perfection before God. In order to reach that level, we need to do our utmost to offer conditions of devotion greater than any worldly love. Any worldly love. These are strong words. So he starts with talking about how we need to control the desires of our body. So when our physical mind becomes, or our physical body becomes the center of our life, then it overwhelms us. And the result of that is we have incredible, we have results of that in society. We have people who are totally unhinged in whatever addiction they're dealing with. And it's damaging themselves, painfully damaging. It destroys our ability to live, our literal ability to be alive, because our physical selves become such a subject, our body becomes such a subject. It's like I eat whatever I want. The problem with Takayo leaving for a week is that I no longer am motivated to cook. Has anyone experienced this? You no longer have someone to cook for, you no longer desire to cook. It's principle, I only just want to live for the sake of others, right? I only want to cook if I have someone to cook for. So instead, I fast fooded so much. Oh, wow. Takayo was getting mad at me because I was trying new places. Man, I felt single. I was just like, yeah, whatever. It's such a waste of money. How did I do this throughout all my college career? My mom would offer. She'd say, you want me to make you lunch? No, thank you. I'd rather have Subway. It's this excitement of being able to go out and get fast food. Uncontrolled. And I felt really repentful by the end of the week. I ate out so much. My body totally won. Anyway, when you change your lifestyle radically, when you no longer have to cook, it's hard to hold on to, your standard. But when we eat whatever we want, when I just put in whatever I want into my body, there is a radical change that takes place, right? It totally changes the way that you even perceive life on a mental level. My mentality totally started to decay. I noticed that as I was eating whatever I wanted, I started to look at my phone however I wanted. I started to get, just kind of lose myself in the realm of what my body wanted to do. It's kind of this unhinged thing. So when my body just desires whatever my body wants, my faith gets cut. That's why my suggestion is also for many people is maybe you're trying to grow your relationship with God. Well, there's devotion that you need to offer. There's ways that we can elevate our mind and strengthen our mind. But also, there's bodily things that we need to help you cut off from. Aju? When we deal with addiction, the first thing that we deal with is you do a separation from the thing that you're addicted to. Full stop. You have to separate yourself from that thing, full stop. Put yourself out of the environment that is somehow bringing you back to whatever it is that keeps bringing you down. And then from that space, you can strengthen your mind and continue. But your body has to go down to the negative point. It has to go down. Otherwise, it grows strong and our internal self decays. So you want to be chumbo, you want to be a treasure of heaven. We have to deal with our body, the desires of our body. So in order to reach that level, what must we do? True Father says this. You have to offer conditions of devotion greater than any of the things you love in this world. Greater than your love for brisk iced tea. You have to offer a condition that brings you to a higher level than that. Or maybe it's something much more serious than that. Maybe it's a drug. Maybe it's a person. You have to offer conditions of devotion that are higher than that. It's the only way you can scale outside of it. You can be able to turn the tide of your spiritual life. So we're looking inwardly, right? We look at this. If you want that area to expand, you want to become someone of great valor, and someone looks at you with, wow, this is the pride of God. This is the pride of God. Then we have to offer devotion that's greater than what you love in this world. Who here can do that? Who here is doing that? Woo! It's such a challenge. Some of these things of worldly love could even be matters of, just human-centered thinking. So I may hold on to my ego, my pride, my desire for something. But I have to go to a realm of devotion that can bring those things down to a minus and lift up my vertical faith. Grow our vertical faith. I encourage us to get to that realm of spiritual lifestyle. That realm of spiritual great work. That's the work. That's the work. So Mother says and reiterates this point. She says the answer can be found through spiritual resurrection, through Chonchimon training. Okay, Chonchimon is the prayer hall. So there's a specific style of prayer which I'll describe in a moment. We must, through real spiritual experiences, we must rekindle the passion that the early true elders had as they devoted themselves fully to God's will and did not worry about what they ate or what they wore. In spite of the fact that they were unaware of the details of the providence, they knew one thing: they were doing the work of the Messiah and that they were his children. We have to go back to that level of spiritual lifestyle. They devoted themselves to God's will, didn't worry about the things. Didn't worry about the things. Some of the best decisions I made in my life, Justin, were the moments when, physically speaking, it would make sense for me to not do something. It would, physically speaking, but it would be the spiritual best thing that I would do. I can give one of my best examples of recent experience was last year. Physically speaking, I didn't have the money, nor did I feel like I had the time, and I was very consumed in everything I was doing in New York City. But spiritually, I really needed to go see my sister in across the way, all the way in San Francisco. And it was a challenge, right? I was really challenged by this. So this is what I need to do. But it would require me to make a sacrifice, a physical sacrifice of time, money, energy, all sorts of things. I'd have to set everything aside. That decision is why Takayo and I are pastors right now. It was that decision, because it was my sister who convinced me to say yes to this. So if I hadn't gone, I would probably not be here right now. And maybe you'd have a better pastor. But because I made a sacrifice for the sake of others, for something that would strengthen and bolster my ability to be a greater internal person, because I made that sacrifice, then God's blessing comes down. I rend my heart, God's blessing comes down, and we grow ourselves. So we have to make these kinds of spiritual great decisions, great works. But it's not just in the decisions we make, but also in how we practice our faith, our lifestyle of faith. So mother suggests that we should have Chonshimwon training. What does that mean? It's like prayer hall training. So starting actually on March 8th, we're going to start doing Chonshimwon evening visuals here at the church. And just every Friday night, just like Korea does. And it's going, we're going to get a drum. We're going to get the whole 9 yards. We're going to go all in. And yeah, Katsuka-san, you and me. It'll just be you and me. That's fine. Here's what I believe. If you really allow yourself to let go. Honestly, me. I am so attached to the things of my physical life. I'm so attached to things of my past. I'm so attached to what I deem is right. Me. It's all about me. I'm so attached to these things. They are what I revolve my life around. I mean, like to lose our identity or anything. But I'm so attached to things that are totally from the sake of myself. I'm totally in this realm. And when I get so attached to those things, I have to rend myself in new direction that requires a greater experience of my faith. So sometimes in the Chonshimwon, when I pray, I have to shout, even when I don't want to. Sometimes my throat is gone. Actually, basically, we're the church of the sore throat because my voice is always gone now. But even if it hurts, sometimes even when it's painful, still, I shout. Say, God, please, hear my heart. Or I shout the name of somebody. I shout, Peter! Peter! And Peter wakes up. Oh, Aju, has it happened? Not yet. Okay, I got to shout louder. But something amazing happens. Sometimes when we're dealing, like I was sharing, we're dealing with many substantial issues in this church. Sometimes I don't have a solution. So then I shout to God. There was moments where my body's so weak that even I can't even flex my abs anymore. Has anyone ever experienced that? You have it's like I can barely hold on to my physical self. But still, there's 30 minutes left in a prayer or something. And I make a decision. I'm going to let go of my physical body. And I'm going to allow my spiritual self to go. Because I need an answer. I need an answer so bad on this matter. What am I doing? Half the time, Takaya and I, we are asking, we look at ourselves, what do we do? So we have to go to God. And so then in that moment, I'll pray and still I can do it. I can do it. God, what do you want? And I continue to offer devotion. And I reach another realm of spiritual life. We call this resonance. It's resonance. You're vibrating with God's frequency. Imagine the desperate heart of God as God is waiting for his children to come home. You can imagine yourself as a parent if you long for your child. Your child has a situation, he's sick, he's hurt, he's lost. The desperacy of that moment, that's God's frequency. When we match that level of frequency, spiritual experiences, deep, rich, life-changing, transformative spiritual experiences that change the rest of your life forever. Now, the problem is that most of us have not had that experience in many, many, many years, or haven't had it yet. And when you do, it changes everything. That's why we have to write it down and never forget. And later on in life, we try to doubt. Oh, I had that deep experience, or I had that moment. And, actually, maybe that was just fake. That was just my emotions running. That was just something. It's not. That was the realest moment of your life. Don't forget it. But we have to have that constantly. Otherwise, this gets real dull. And we start to walk the way of our physical life as much as we want. But we have to go there. We have to reach that deeper, richer life wherever you may be at, we all can go there. My suggestion is to let go. My suggestion is to let go. Really let your heart go to the place that God is resonating with. And then come back to me when you have that spiritual experience. You say, thanks. Thank you. How can we expand the realm of God's embrace if we ourselves cannot be expanding our spiritual life? Aju? So I feel this is a time where we have to have spiritual greater work. This is a work. This is an effort we make. And I invite you into going to that deeper space. I invite you. Of course, the part 2 of this is our physical, substantial life. We have a lot of work to do with that. And you can come back tomorrow if you'd like to hear that. But this is the beginning point. This is the beginning point. So when we come on March 8th, feel free to join us. Friday night. It's a tough time, I know. But we're gonna dive deeper. Dive deeper. Fill our spiritual well. Expand our spiritual lifestyle. Have real spiritual experiences. And we begin to walk a new way of life. I don't know how all of you feel, but personally, that's what I desperately need if I'm going to continue to keep fighting this fight and continuing to walk in the direction of becoming someone like heaven's treasure. So I thank you all. Let's reflect on that. God bless you.